The City Hall and County Building is a great example of Chicago school style of architecture. This building, located at 121 North LaSalle Street, was created by Halliburton Roche from 1905 to 1911. First creating the county part of the building on the east side, finishing in 1908, then creating the City Hall part of the building on the west side, finishing in 1911. These architects hold a prestigious legacy of creating groundbreaking skyscrapers in Chicago, including the City Hall and County Building, which was one of their first. Aside from their original Chicago school style, their company was a dominant figure in Art Deco style, modern architecture, and sustainable architecture. They created noteworthy pieces like the Marquette Building, Soldier Field, and Hilton Chicago Hotel. In later years after their deaths, the company's distinction continued under new owners. One of the most common characteristics of Chicago school buildings are the steel frames. This idea was relatively unheard of at the time, making a new architectural design. The steel frame of the City Hall and County Building shows one characteristic of a Chicago school building. Another common characteristic of this style of architecture is 8 to 12 story tall buildings. The City Hall and County Building, being 12 stories tall, fits this characteristic. The Chicago School began the design of a new type of window, which is slightly represented in this building. These horizontal windows that are split into 3 parts are very typical of this style. Another major part of the Chicago school style is how the buildings are split up. As you can see, the first few floors are set off from the middle, creating an obvious break in the building. With the plain middle floors above this break, topped off with a very decorative style, this building shows very typical Chicago school style of architecture. The beautiful aspects of this building show many of the outstanding features of Chicago school buildings.
The Burnham Center shows one building that was created during the City Beautiful movement. This movement, at first creating controversy over whether or not to go back to tradition, made Chicago the great city we know today. Located on the corner of Washington and Clark in the Loop, this building held many names such as the Conway Building and the Chicago Title and Trust Building. Daniel Burnham and Company created the Burnham Center with the actual design done by Frederick P. Dinkelberg. This building was built from 1912 to 1915 in hopes of creating a building that would add to the city's beauty. Daniel Burnham was one of the first to incorporate Greek and Roman styles into his buildings, such as the use of columns purely for decoration. These columns, which give the building character and design, can be seen in the Burnham Center. Daniel Burnham and Company created many buildings in Chicago, including Marshall Field and Company, Mattinock Building, and Hayworth Building. The Burnham Center was the last building designed by Burnham's company in his lifetime. Many aspects of the City Beautiful movement can be seen in this building. The flat roof shown is a very common trait of the City Beautiful buildings. In addition to the flat roof, symmetry is a very important part of this movement. The building symmetry shows an important part of this style. The symmetry of this building contributes to the axial planes that can be seen through the setup of the windows. The windows and decorations around them are also very typical of this movement. The stone tracery around the windows shows the great detail put into these buildings. Classical and rich details are one of the most distinctive characteristics seen in the City Beautiful buildings. The rich details seen by these animals and designs in the stone are very distinguishing of this movement. The City Beautiful movement justifies its name through many buildings, which is seen through the Burnham Center building.